Super Bowl's over.
Yeah, I had the Eagles. I thought they were going to win. Um, I think they blew it, to be honest with you. I mean, they had their foot on the throat. They had the time of possession in the first half. Mahomes limping around. It just speaks to Andy Reid and his ability to adjust at the half. The offensive game plan they came out was impeccable. They scored every time they had the ball. And the Eagles, I don't know. I don't think they made any adjustments. Maybe they thought they had the game. They were up by 10 at the half. Things were going well, but they just defensively, they couldn't figure out a way to stop what they were doing. And it wasn't like rocket science what they were doing. It was pretty easy to figure out that you had to, pressure Mahomes and then that scramble where he just ran up the middle. I don't know. They just didn't do a good job containing and in coverage, and they deserved to lose.
I agree. I thought the Eagles were the better team, and but the Chiefs had Mahomes and Andy Reid. That's what was like was in my head the whole time. I thought Jalen Hurts played great, really
He
well.
did.
I
Yeah.
don't think they gave him, in my opinion, I don't think they gave him some of the most timely calls. Like I thought the play calling was spotty, even though they were outplaying them early. And then the second half, I thought it was almost poor the play calling. Um, and then basically we're trying to just squeeze out little first downs and then get QB sneak into the next one, and then Andy Reid got them three times on things that I thought were um, gotcha plays. Two of them were the same play, but on different sides. The goal line touchdown where no one was there, where he brought the guy in motion across. They,
Hmm.
they come running across and man to man. Guy back, Tony backs out, catches the ball. They did the same thing to on the other side with Moore. The same
Yep.
exact play, just to the other
Yep.
corner. And then the punt return was genius. Nobody runs a wall outside of high school. You know what I mean? The wall, the old school wall on a punt return where everybody comes along. Because in the pros, guys just run around the wall. They're too fast. Even in college, every once in a while you might see it, but very rarely because they're just too fast. They run around the wall. But because it's the last game and nobody's seen it on film, he runs a wall and tells Tony, just make a move and just sprint to the sideline. You have nothing to lose. And he sprints to the sideline. He gets to the wall. And now it's a convoy. So I thought those were three just, you know, a step ahead of everything. The not blitzing was bad by the Eagles. You can't let Mahomes just sit back. It's like
No.
let Brady sit back. They're the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. They just, and again, the wall that you're talking about, I mean, it was a clear counterplay. It was like they wanted Tony to go in the opposite direction of the wall, reverse course, but they should have tackled him. I mean, you got to contain that. There's no excuse for Tony and Moore to be uncovered. No excuse whatsoever. I don't know what the game plan was there. I mean, he goes in motion, he stops and reverses field. There's nobody there. Like, how is there not a defensive back on that side of the ball? If he crosses the quarterback, you can leave that, boundary side or field side. I think it was boundary side clear. But until he crosses the quarterback, you can't like just let him go. So I think there's some bad coaching on the defensive side of football for the Eagles, and some good coaching for Andy Reid. And when it was 5:35 left, and it's tied, and Mahomes has the ball, they're gonna figure something out. They're
Well,
gonna get a field goal at the very least, and they
oh,
were very
absolutely.
smart to down it, and kill the clock and win by a field goal in the end and all that stuff.
How
It's
about the
just
use of Juju Smith-Schuster? I mean, who basically they never really used that much all year. He was a. I just think Andy Reid figures out how to take a guy that high draft pick like a Schuster, who you knew had potential to do things, but could not be the number one receiver for anybody. Right? Takes him as a 3 or 4 receiver, lightly utilized for most of the year. Going to Travis Kelsey early in the game over and over again. Knows the defense is going to have to worry about Kelsey, and he runs purposeful plays for Juju. Like those were designed plays for Juju Smith-Schuster, which I'm sure most of the year they didn't even do any of that. So that was amazing. I thought.
It's smart, and the Eagles had the chance to put the game away in the first half. With the time of possession, the fact that Mahomes didn't have the football, you know, they made some key mistakes. The illegal motion on the fourth, on the what was it, 3rd and 1. On the QB sneak that leads to 3rd and 6. It leads to Hurts dropping the football, trying to change hands with it. Leads to a defensive touchdown. Um, that's 24-14. It could have easily been, at the half, it could have been potentially 31-7. And then the game's over. So the Eagles had their chance. They had them on the ropes. They had them ready to be knocked out. They couldn't do it. And then the lack of adjustment at the end was just kind of disturbing. And, the penalty call wouldn't have mattered. Everybody's talking about the penalty call and the defensive holding that brought him down, inside the 10. It was still, I mean, Butker missed a field goal, yeah, but he wasn't going to miss a 38, 42-yarder to win the game anyways. So it's just one of those things where I thought the Eagles were extremely uninspired in the second half. And I saw the Chiefs getting really pissed off at the end of the first half, and they came out with fire, and the Eagles came out with nothing. And they didn't run the freaking ball.
Yeah, ever.
I mean, Gainwell had a couple nice carries.
Yeah.
Miles Sanders was invisible. I think he had, 3 carries, 4 carries? I thought they were going to come out and sort of, up 24-14, and they gave up the touchdown to make it 24-21, but just try to make it a more physical football game. Try to use their offensive line, which is very good. Run the football, control tempo, continue to control the clock. They didn't. A lot of 3-and-outs, and just Mahomes. I don't know. I mean, I bet the Eagles and I bet the under, so I was wrong on both. I really thought this was going to be sort of a feeling out slugfest in the beginning of the game where both sides. I thought the Chiefs were going to try to establish the run a little bit, with Pacheco or McKinnon, or at least have a short passing game to establish the run that way. And the Eagles were going to do the same thing, and neither of them did. I mean, it was 7-7, 7 minutes in the game. And then it was, 24-14 at the half. And I'm thinking, oh, geez, 38 points. The over's 51. I'm dead. I'm cooked. And they ended up scoring 70 or more points. But I still thought Philly would win the game. So I think this is Andy Reid. I think he deserves the most credit. I don't think Mahomes had a great game. I think he had an okay game. It wasn't great.
You know what Mahomes is? Like the relationship he has with Andy Reid, the where they're on the same page. I don't think Mahomes, what I like about him is I don't think he could play outside himself when he has to, but when he doesn't have to, he's perfectly willing to game manage if he has to. Like what he did here, just execute what Andy Reid was looking to do, not go outside of it. I think that's what makes him really good. He doesn't feel a lot of great quarterback, like guys who consider themselves to be the best guys, feel like they have to show that they're the best guy over and over again. Like a Dan Marino, who was obviously one of my favorites of all time. But he wanted to let you know that he was
Right.
the best quarterback each time out, whether he won or lost. Mahomes is willing to do kind of whatever it takes to get the job done. If it means him throwing for 500 yards and he has to do it, and that's the situation calls. If it means him throwing for 2-something and kind of picking and choosing and taking advantage of he's just willing to do it. He has a just if I was coaching him, you would just have a nice confidence coaching him because he gives you that feel like, hey, I'm just, whatever we got to do to get it done, we'll figure it out. And he's not overly dramatic. What I was impressed with was Jalen Hurts, I thought, was very impressive in how he continued to carry himself. I think the play calling was very spotty by the Eagles. I don't think they put him in a lot of he made some great plays, but I don't think they put him in a lot of great situations. Even though he gained yards in some of those draw plays, I didn't think they were great plays. I mean, the one he fumbled on the one because it was an awkward call at the time. I thought that call was an awkward call, and it was almost like Jalen Hurts executed it, but immediately knew it was a wrong call, and was trying to make something happen, bail out the play in a sense. and that's how he lost control of the ball. But I just thought the whole game was a lot like that. And you hit it on the head with the run game. Like when they ran the ball was weird. I just thought the willingness to just get enough yards so Jalen Hurts can do that sneak play was just like it seemed like they were playing for a lot of that. I mean, that may not have been the case, but that's just how it seemed. And it wasn't with the guys they had and with the dynamic abilities they could have had. Goddard had to make great catches in a lot of situations. Jalen Hurts had to make
Yeah.
great throws to get it to him. They didn't craft. And I mean the Brown catch. It wasn't like that was a crafted situation. He was double covered. He made a great throw, great maneuver to get to the ball. But the next time they tried it, the Chiefs just swatted it down. It was
Yeah. Well, it was almost picked.
it was
Yeah.
almost picked. It wasn't like there was like Andy Reid. You feel like he's crafting everything step by step along the way, building on it. This seems spotty. It's like when you're at a game and you're trying to figure out the whole time, what is the offensive coordinator or whoever's calling the plays, what is he actually trying to accomplish? That's what I watching that game. I knew where Andy Reid was going with everything, but like with the Eagles, I really just what was the building blocks of the strategy? Like what was going to lead to the thing that was going to get someone wide open? You know what I mean? They didn't have any of that.
And they did. I think they took their foot off the pedal because there was an aggression level at the beginning of the game, where they were playing two downs. They were playing for third and fourth down. So you would have a running play to set up 4th and 1. You're down to the 15-yard line, and you're playing two downs. Sirianni was very, very aggressive in the first half, and he ended up getting a touchdown out of it. And it was almost like I thought he was nuts, because he was giving up a field goal opportunity, and I think
Right.
it was 14-14 at the time.
Remember, yep.
After Bolton had scored, and they went all the way down there, down to the 11-yard line, and he's playing for two downs because it was 3rd and 5, and he does an inside handoff for like 2 or 3 yards, and there's no thought of the field goal kicker coming out, and it's a chip shot field goal. Go up 17-14, points are at a premium, blah, blah, blah. You went for it on 4th down, got it. They ended up scoring a touchdown. And I'm like, well, this is some ballsy stuff. This is what the Eagles want to do. This is their aggressive nature. And then in the second half, it kind of felt like they backed off a little bit. And it also felt like Hurts was he's really improved. His completion percentage his first year as a pro is 52%. He got it up to 66% this year, and that's in 3 years. That's really impressive. And he's so much better a passer than he was before. But he was also bouncing out. He was on the short side a lot, rolling to his right with nowhere to throw the football. At least 3 times I remember him rolling out. And I think he was flush, but I think he also lacks that ability to know when to pop out and when to step up. He's not a step-up guy. He's either going to, if he's pressured, he's going to bounce out, scramble, or he's going to step up and run. But I think the ability to sort of step up, maintain your vision down the field, like Mahomes does, lacks. And that's the big difference in the quarterback play there. So the play calling wasn't great, but he put himself in a lot of situations where, the completion percentage, honestly, for Jalen Hurts in the pocket, I don't know what it is, but let's say it's 60%, and he was 66% all year. The completion percentage for a quarterback rolling to his right as a right-handed quarterback, cutting off, 66% of the field is probably 15%. And he put himself in that position on multiple plays, including a couple key third downs, to the point where if I'm a Chiefs fan, I got him. He's rolled out. He's rolling to his right. He can't throw across his body. If he does, he's nuts. Mahomes does that, and it drives me crazy still, but it works. But if Hurts does that, it could be a pick six. So then he's got one option, which is to tightrope a throw down the sideline and hope somebody can make a play. And the chances of that happening are probably less than 10%. So I think the Chiefs also in their pass rush, Carlos Dunlap is really an unsung hero for the Chiefs. Everybody talks about Chris Jones, and Chris Jones is amazing. Carlos Dunlap was all over the goddamn field last night, number 8, and nobody really mentioned it or talked about it. And he was causing a lot of problems. Now, this is a 10-year pro. I think he's at least 10 years in. He's a 6'5", 280-pound guy, and he's closing on Jalen Hurts. And those are the type of guys that the Eagles were missing in the Super Bowl. Hassan Reddick looked that way in the first half, and then he kind of fell off. Their Josh Sweat didn't do anything except for one bad penalty. They just were lacking those guys that could even perhaps make things uncomfortable for Mahomes. And that was the difference. And the Eagles, remember, were supposed to have the better defensive line, and they didn't.
They were non-existent, absolutely
Mm-hmm.
non-existent. I mean, if you could name the names of the plays that those guys made, there was and then the other thing was what you said was really important. So the Eagles were known for having that run game, and the team that actually ran the ball in the second half was the Chiefs with Pacheco, and Pacheco was just plugging away.
Physical running too. Physical
Physical.
finishing his runs physically. I mean, do you remember you see the Gardner hit where he just destroyed him?
Yeah.
Okay, but the guy comes back next play. And I think they might have taken a timeout. I don't know what it was. Like he was hurt. They came to tend to him. And the first thing you think of is the fear of, DeMar Hamlin again, because he took a helmet right to the chest.
Right.
And he was, woozy, and not woozy, but he was like, everything was knocked out of him.
Right.
The next play, he ends up catching a swing pass for a first down. It's like they used Pacheco physically as a runner of the middle. They used him in the pass game. They used McKinnon a little bit less. But I remember Gainwell once. I'm going to have to switch out my earbuds. I remember Gainwell maybe twice with 2 good carries, I don't really remember Miles Sanders doing absolutely anything. And that was my problem with him in fantasy. I had him in my fantasy league. When he was on my bench, he'd put up 130 yards. When I didn't start him, he'd put up 30. I mean, when I started him, I'm sorry, he'd put up 30. So he ended up with 1,300 yards rushing, but he's not a good back. He's not a consistent back, and I think we saw that.
He's erratic. He's a hit or miss guy. Being a hit or miss guy, I think it makes the big. And you're gone, and then you'll be back. But like I was saying, I think he's a hit or miss guy. He's the kind of guy that running back that has the huge game and then has a game that is okay. And in these kind of games, you need someone that is going to be able to consistently be able to do the job at running back. Pacheco showed that, which was amazing to me. How Pacheco showed. What I was saying was I lost you for a brief second. You there or gone back? And he's gone. What I was saying is Pacheco showed that ability to be able to be a consistent back. It's amazing to me because at Rutgers, he wasn't overly heralded, but he looks like such a tremendous potential star in the NFL. We got you back here. Hold on 1 second. I get you back in there. There you are. You're back. You have yourself muted.
On that. Okay.
There.
I have these Dr. Dre beats, right? And they're great. They're really good. They're good. I have 2 pairs of them because I'm on the phone all the time.
Right.
And they last maybe 5 hours. So I've been on the phone all day. So these ones wear out. I try to switch over to these ones. Just the Bluetooth is finding the old ones, and it won't let me find the new ones. So all of that scrambling you just saw there is me being fumbling with technology. I don't know how to switch out my beats while I'm on StreamYard. I can do it while I'm on the phone, but StreamYard shuts down everything. And then it shut down my camera. So I missed everything you said. But I heard you say that Miles Sanders is a very erratic.
Yes.
Consistent. And that's just, I don't think it was his fault, though. They didn't give him the ball.
No, well, he didn't get a chance in this game. That may be, but to go to what you're kind of saying, his consistency, and I just thought about this right now, is that maybe it's the play calling style, not necessarily Miles Sanders, and he might be a guy, some back. Look, in the old days, right? The backs, if you gave them 5 carries a game, they couldn't, they wouldn't be able to perform.
Right, they needed to, work their way into the game.
So he could be that kind of guy, and maybe the reason he's 130 and in 30 is he may be a guy, if he's not getting a lot of carries in the game, and that's how the play calling is going, he's probably a non-existent guy. He's not like Tyreek Hill, you get him every touch is a dynamic touch just because of the way that he doesn't need to warm up. He's ready to go. But backs, like the old backs and the old big backs in the old days, and Derrick Henry's a little bit like this still in today's era. You got to feed them the ball enough for them to be productive because whatever their style is, they feel better in the game as they get the ball more. The offenses now are different. So what happens is, I think with the Eagles, the way they play call is there are games where they're just, okay, we're going to get, this is working. We're going to give Sanders the ball and he really gets rolling. And there are games where they don't feel that that's working the way they want to and he doesn't touch the ball. And then all of a sudden he's a crappy production guy. You're right. It may not have to do with, it may just be his style of as a runner. Gainwell is really definitely a guy that it doesn't matter how many carries he gets. If he gets 3, his 3 carries are as good as his 3 carries could be. But again, it's the same thing. Like
well, they didn't even use Boston.
Yeah, they used Boston. They used him once. He had a great play.
Great play. Maybe he juked out 2 people, made him look foolish. I think it was a catch.
It was a catch.
Yeah, but they didn't even use Boston. So they're like a 3-headed monster at running back, and that's the other part with fantasy is like Miles Sanders is the most carries he's going to probably get is 16 a game, and
right.
I don't know how many got in this, but I can guarantee you it wasn't anything close to 16. It was probably less than 10 for sure. But they used Gainwell as the sort of change of pace guy, and they used Boston as a guy in space. They didn't use any of them, so I just think the offensive game plan was completely opposite of what I expected. Doesn't mean it's wrong. I expected them to be, we're Philly, we're tough, we're physical. We're going to run at you, we're going to wear you down. We're going to use our possession, passing game. They don't have burners. I mean, Devontae Smith can run, and he's a great acrobatic downfield catch guy, but he's not Tyreek Hill. We're going to use A.J. Brown as a physical over-the-middle type of wide receiver. We're going to use Goddard. We're going to just punch you in the face over and over again. And that's what they did in the first half, but they didn't wear down the Chiefs. The Chiefs defense was on the field 75% of the game in the first half, but they weren't a worn down defense because they didn't run the football. And I think that's one of the mistakes they made. So I thought it was going to be sort of a plodding, maybe 24-20 football game. It turned out to be, sort of a shootout, and you're not going to win a shootout with Mahomes. To your point, he can do whatever it takes to win. His scramble at the end of the AFC Championship game against the Bengals was, epic on the ankle. His scramble in this one up the middle was epic. He threw 2 guys. He threw 2 touchdowns to Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney that were just absolutely wide open. I mean, anybody could have thrown those. He wasn't as sharp, but he wasn't. They just didn't get after him. If you remember the Super Bowl, I forget who it was against. The one he lost. Was that against the
Brady?
Tampa, right?
Yeah, I think it was Brady, yeah.
It was Brady. That defense, he was running for his life. And it's kind of the same offensive line. I mean, it's pretty much the Creed Humphrey was a rookie, I believe, that year, but I think they still had Pace on the outside, not Pace, Brown on the outside as the, left tackle. I think the right guard's the same. But he was running for his life, and if he's running for his life, he can't do anything. In this case, he was way too comfortable, and they didn't get after him. So, good on Andy Reid. First of all, the Fox coverage I thought was excellent. I think Greg Olson's very, very good at what he does. Unfortunately for him, he's going to be replaced next year by Tom Brady or 2024.
And getting a $7 million pay cut.
Yeah, so that makes no sense to me whatsoever. But he does have a clause in his contract where if one of the number 1 guys on another network leaves, he can leave and get out of his. But I thought he was good. I thought the coverage was good. I don't know why they allow Terry Bradshaw on the podium. They're trying to cancel him because he's fat. Andy Reid because he made a joke about cheeseburgers and he made a joke about how old they were and all this stuff. I don't give a crap about any of that. No fat shaming, but Andy Reid's fat. Sorry, I'm fat. You call me fat, you're not fat shaming me. You're calling me what I am. But he's such a bumbling fool that I just didn't understand why they give the mic. They've got very capable guys. You know, there's Strahan, who's on Good Morning America. I mean, he's really, really capable with a microphone. You know, they've got
Howie Long.
what's that?
Howie Long.
Yeah, he's a little quiet. He's a little tempered, but he would be good. You know, Jimmy Johnson would be fun, coach
Yeah,
to
it would be
coach.
fun.
But they put this, you know, this cartoon character who I respect him for, you know, freaking 4 Super Bowl, right? I mean, he won. I think he won 4.
Yes.
That's pretty amazing in a tough era where he's just punching them up all the time. I love him, but he's kind of a bumbling fool, and it kind of made the whole thing kind of feel stupid at the end. Very campy, and I don't know why that, but Fox, I did an overall good job. I like Mahomes. I'm not a big fan of Kelsey now. Enough of this garbage. You know, fight for the right to party, and you know, jabroni and calling the mayor this, that, the other, and you know, telling everybody that nobody believes in you. You know, a lot of people picked the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
So he's trying to do this combination of Gronk thing, but also this tough guy thing, and he's coming off really annoying. But Mahomes always comes off the same way. But you can see, this is the funny part. You see Mahomes interviewed by himself without that guy around. Mahomes is very Mahomes. You know, he's articulate, he's funny, he's, you know, just team guy, team first. You get him around that jerk, and he's like, all of a sudden he's tough guy. And he's talking like tough. And it's funny how they feed off each other. And it wins, it works, but man, Kelsey.
Oh, I lost you. You there?
No, I'm here.
Okay. I on a lot of those things I agree with you. So I think Mahomes obviously is friends with Kelsey obviously outside of
Yep.
it is one of those friend relationship things where he definitely knows Kelsey's crazy. Absolutely. Kelsey, listen, Butch Jones kicked Kelsey off the team. Okay. Kelsey only came back to Cincinnati because Jason Kelsey went to, there's a whole thing, a bunch of interviews on this where, he's forever thankful for his brother. His brother moved him in with him, moved him in wherever he was staying. They were obviously Cincinnati together, moved him in with him, had him live with him, and got him right. And then once he got right, he went to Butch Jones and got him back on a team. And obviously he did well after that. But, Kelsey's now an adult, right? So it's one thing your brother in your 20s or 20 years old, your brother grabs you and says, "Hey man, you need to get right. Otherwise you're going to be going home." And that works. But now as he becomes an adult, Kelsey is who he is. Like he kind of is a little bit of a, for lack of a better word, douchey guy. Okay.
Yep.
Right. I mean, that's kind of, I hate using that word because people hate that word now, but that's what he, when we were young, that's what that's his kind of personality. If he's your friend, like Mahomes and him are friends, you like him. But if he's not your buddy, if you're looking at him from an outside, you're like, what's this guy about? Like, it's just, it's like a strange MO. It's like a halfway Gronk. He's not like he kind of goofy like Gronk, but Gronk is all the way goofy. Doesn't take himself seriously.
Gronk's lovably
goofy
and dumb. Lovably goofy and dumb.
Right. Harmless, means zero by it. Competitor, obviously, was a great competitor. Kelsey, obviously a great competitor. But Kelsey seems brighter to me. Kelsey's is to an extent like a stick it to you thing. Like his whole thing is like it's premeditated. That's the word. His stuff is premeditated. Gronk is off the cuff, goofy.
Right.
Kelsey's trying to get a message out there, a message that he wants to be out there. And Mahomes is interesting because the Mahomes that you see interviewed there, like Mahomes to me is that he's kind of like how he is in that State Farm's commercials, right? Smart guy, kind of like a little bit goofy, lots to have fun, kind of
Aw,
goofy.
very awestruck, like a nice.
Yeah, aw shucks. That's the word. Aw shucks guy, right? Like, but Kelsey puts that like gives him a little bit of a bravado to like pushes the bravado mode on Mahomes. Where Mahomes, like I don't obviously I like Mahomes most of the time, even when he's doing that stuff because he has that aw shucks thing to him. You know, it's not really like he's just rolling with the moment. You could see his face. He's like, I'm just rolling with the moment. I really don't care. You know, this is my buddy. Whatever he wants to say, he says. You know, but you're right. With Terry Bradshaw on stage, it becomes much more of that. Kelsey is emboldened to be that way. If you had Strahan or even Howie Long or Jimmy Johnson, first of all, if it's Jimmy Johnson, they would have had more Andy Reid, which I would have liked to see
I would
more.
have liked that too.
It would have been more Andy Reid because Jimmy Johnson loves to obviously talk to the coach. You would have got more of Andy Reid's personality, which is a fantastic personality. Okay, his personality in him, and I think the thing that those guys, each one of them would have brought something different, but they would not have given the stage to Kelsey in that manner. Where Terry Bradshaw is really a studio guy to me. Okay, he's funny in the studio. He uses that whole, I'm a Southerner, guy thing, and everyone has a great time with it. When he's out there in the trophy ceremony, where it's got to be a little, you could be funny, but you have to have a certain level of seriousness to it. I think he struggles in that area. And I think that allows Kelsey to be emboldened because he's like, oh, you're going to keep the mic in front of me? Awesome. I'll
Right.
keep going. I'll keep going. Whereas Strahan would have pulled that mic right out. He would have just pulled that out of there.
Right.
There's no doubt in my mind. He would have been like, all right, enough. Thank you. I'll take the mic back.
I kind of want to like these guys like I like Brady and Gronk, and I'm from New England. I'm not a Patriots fan, but I have a
Right.
respect for Gronk. Brady's the best ever. Gronk was this big dummy that I kind of knew in high school. It was the same person, he's always just like that, just a fun-loving party dude. And they really played off each other very well because Gronk would always like throw it in your face in a laughing manner, like, oh, they didn't think we're gonna win again, right, Tom? Ha ha ha, like a dummy. And then Tom would just be with this, little smirk and smile, like, yeah, they didn't. These two are just fumbling over each other. Kelsey's kind of like you said, kind of a jerk, and Mahomes is falling into that, and he's not a jerk, But I don't think they know how to play this off, and I think Kansas City fans love it, and as they should. And if I was a Chiefs fan, I would absolutely love it too. But as a fan of no team, I find it like, shut up, just shut up. And so the other guys I think of in this, I think of the Giants, and they punted Kadarius Toney because he's a problem. He's a problem kid, but talented as can be. And honestly, a case could be made for MVP of the Super Bowl. I mean, he caught a touchdown pass. He wasn't covered, but that punt return changed everything. Tyreek Hill, what's he thinking? What's he thinking right now? He left the Chiefs, and he's a very cocky individual. And he went to the Dolphins, and he's talking about how Tua is better than Mahomes, right? He's more accurate than Mahomes. This is the most accurate quarterback I ever played with. And he's thinking to himself, well, good luck, Chiefs, without me. And they win the Super Bowl. And his ego is probably just shattered right now. Now, again, he's a narcissist, as most football players are, and he's not aware of these feelings, so his ego isn't shattered. But deep inside, he's hurting. He's probably like, you got lucky, or we would have beat him by 40 if I was there, or whatever. But he's the one that came to mind to me when I thought of this like, who's getting, because when Kelsey talks about this, he's want to stick it to the Cincinnati mayor and the people who doubted and all that stuff. But really, I think the guy the Chiefs are sticking it to the most is Tyreek Hill.
What was did Tyreek want more money? What was I don't know the whole backdrop behind it.
Yeah, he wanted money. I mean,
Okay.
it was big money. But again, he chose the Dolphins. I think the Jets might have offered him more. But he also, because he can't just make it a money grab, I think he talked about, some I don't know what specifics they were that he didn't like in Kansas City. But he did talk he could have just gone and taken his bag and shut up and said, Tua is a good quarterback. He didn't have to come out and say he's the most accurate quarterback I've ever played with or the best quarterback I've ever played with, or he put him on legit comparison to Mahomes in one statement. He's like, this guy's just as good. And so I think, that's – they wouldn't ever say that. They're going to talk about the fans. They're going to talk about the media. They're going to talk about the mayor. But I think everybody on that podium was like, yeah, Tyreek, we didn't need you. Go to hell. And I was surprised nobody said it, though. Like, Kelsey's such an arrogant guy. It wouldn't surprise me if he said Tyreek said that, there was another quarterback he was playing with that was better than this guy. What's he thinking now? Maybe that'll come out in the interviews post-Super Bowl. But that's the guy I thought of the most. And then it was secondly the Giants, giving up on Kadarius Toney. And they have no receivers on the Giants. And was part of the reasons they struggled in the playoffs. Danny Jones was running for his life and had a great game against Minnesota, but they weren't able to beat anybody with that receiving core. And they spent a first-round pick on Toney.
Is he the Florida guy from Florida?
And to your point, you take Juju Smith-Schuster from Pittsburgh, and he was the number 2 guy there, maybe number 1 when Antonio went crazy, but not good, not average. You take Toney away from the Giants. You put pieces together, around Mahomes that aren't superstars. I mean, if you look at that offense, there's 2 superstars. It's Kelsey and Mahomes, and there's nobody else. Nobody else on that receiving core is that great. None of these linemen are historically great linemen. But that's all you need, I guess, in the NFL now is like you think of Gronk and Tom Brady, the year they won without any wide receivers, You don't need that. You just need a great quarterback. You need a solid team around you, and you need one unstoppable presence, and that's Kelsey. He's the best tight end. I'm not saying ever. He's clearly the best tight end in football now.
Definitely, no doubt.
And he's already one of the top 5 all time.
He's a Hall of Famer.
So then you do the comparisons. Tony Gonzalez never won a Super Bowl. Is he better? And those comparisons are there. But yeah, that's all you really need is 2 superstars and a bunch of role players, and you can win.
Well, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer to me, no doubt. Kelsey, he's big and moves like a wide receiver. It's I think and this, I mean, I guess Belichick did this a little bit, but Andy Reid has done this really well. He's taken guys that were rated as first round guys or, kind of went as a first round guy. And when they didn't succeed, it's almost like in his head, he's like, well, you know what? He was taken in the first round for a reason. Let's find out what that skill set is and only make him do that. Instead of having him be the trying to make him into your 100 catch guy, which they can't do. We're going to make him do these things, which is what he did really well, which is why these guys drafted him in the first place. They thought they could expand him into a number 1 receiver or number 2. But we're going to take Toney and make them do these things. And that's it. And like the play Schuster ran was like the same kind of play over and over again. And it was something he could do really well. And you know what? Like, I feel like you could take a guy that has that ability when you have talent like Kelsey and Mahomes around you, and you can say, hey, listen, get really good at this. Get really good at this, and you're going to catch 4 balls every game. And 4 times, in the long run, like if you're in a course of a season, 4 times 17, do the math. You're at 70 catches. You're at 60 catches. Are you a Hall of Famer? No. You're going to win Super Bowls. People are going to remember you in a Super Bowl. And you're going to catch, you're going to go 10 years, 600 catches. I mean, so.
The same thing, I think, with Sammy Watkins, who was the number 1 guy on the Bills. Yep. And he comes to Kansas City, and he's not an elite number 1, but he's a really good, wide receiver, productive, not a guy that you're going to pick in the first half of your fantasy draft, but a steady receiver. He's really good at plucking guys off of other rosters. And they're also really good at developing. I mean, the Eagles are great at developing. Most of their players are drafted, which is amazing. But, when you look at the way they drafted, Chris Jones and Derek Nottie and Nick Bolton, they get it right. They know what they're doing. And that's Andy Reid as well. I mean, the GM and all that stuff. And it doesn't matter if the coach wants somebody and he feels comfortable with them and they're going to fit in their system. So he's won 2 Super Bowls now. And so the debate was last week, like, does he go on the Mount Rushmore of NFL coaches? Obviously Belichick's there. But where does Andy Reid stand, with Bill Walsh or Chuck Noll?
Because Jimmy Johnson only won 2, right?
Yeah, because Switzer won the 3rd. It's tough. I mean, Bill Walsh won 3. I think Mooch won their 4th, right?
Right.
Or maybe Bill Walsh won 4 and Mooch won the 5th. I don't know, but or maybe no, it wasn't even Mooch. It was Seifert, right? George Seifert.
It was Seifert.
So Walsh, I think, has to be there. I think Chuck Noll has to be there. But where does Tom Landry fit?
He won 2.
2. Where do you put? I mean, Belichick's got to be there. So on that 4th slot, if you put Walsh and Noll and Belichick up there, is Andy Reid now with 2? Does he knock somebody out? Does he knock out Landry? Where's Don Shula?
I think he's ahead of Don Shula. Okay. Now, Don Shula, longevity-wise, obviously was around forever, right? But he won 1.
Yeah, and he lost when he was a huge favorite with the Colts.
Yep. And the team he won, the undefeated team, I know it happened to be one of those years in the NFL. I feel like you did a research on it. Obviously, everything fell right for him to be undefeated. It's amazing to be undefeated. But it wasn't like there was no other great team that year. There wasn't it was really they were the best. It wasn't like this. It was one of those years that it was just not a other great team in there. So they really kind of end up winning without having a bunch of other great competitions like you had, like when the Jets were on par in with Namath. It was kind of a weird year. So I don't know. Shula, obviously.
Here's another name for you, Bill Parcells.
What did he win? 2 or 3? 2?
2.
2.
I don't know. It's tough.
And Jimmy Johnson wasn't around that long.
Right. Once you get to 2, there's a lot of guys who've won 2.
If you win 3, he's obviously on there.
Right, but then what do you do at 2? Like, does Tom Landry won 2, but he lost 2 to the Steelers, who were a dynasty. So, you got to figure he's playing, like you said, Shula isn't under consideration because of that particular year. And I think losing with the Colts when he should have won, that knocks him out, But, does Tom Landry get knocked out because he had to face the Steelers twice and lost to them twice? What about Joe Gibbs? I mean, nobody even mentions him. Those Redskins teams, it's like, so the Mount Rushmore discussion is really, really interesting. And now Andy Reid's in it for sure. And the things he did when he didn't win, I mean, he's unbelievable. I think he's is he 4th all time in wins? He's 4th all time in playoff wins. So the guy wins. I don't know who I'd put as that 4th place. I feel confident in Belichick, of course. I feel confident in Chuck Noll, who's he won for, and I feel confident in Bill Walsh. I don't know who I feel confident with it for.
Well, what about Vince Lombardi?
Well, there's another one, and that goes way back. I mean, obviously, we're talking recency, and we're not that recent. We're talking about Shula and Noll and people who are, some people who would watch this are so young that they wouldn't even consider those guys. Yeah, Vince Lombardi, the trophy's named after him. How do you not put him up there?
And he won, didn't he win? He won he won 2 world championships before there was a Super Bowl. So you theoretically, you could, there was just no Super Bowl back then because they weren't combining the AFL and the NFL. So he won 2 world championships before that. Listen, let's go back to this. For his era, right? Obviously, the game has changed so dramatically. What Lombardi did in his era, I think, puts him on there because he was way ahead of his time as far as just from how you get all these guys to get on the same page and win. You know, I mean, he was way ahead of his time. Like the uh the Tom Landrys of the world and the Chuck Knowles of the world, all those guys learned some form of their leadership strategy from how Vince Lombardi did things. I mean, Dan Reeves is from, you could argue is from that era too, right?
Another guy, he's one.
He coached with Landry. It wasn't him or was he? No, was he the quarterback on Landry's team back in the day? Like,
oh man, I can't remember. You just made me think of the Broncos, and Shanahan won 2, also.
There you go.
There's another name, but yeah, Vince Lombardi. But then you could talk about, okay, what about George Halas before they even had Super Bowls?
Right.
Then you go dive deep, and so I think it's like Super Bowl era Vince Lombardi. Yeah, he won 2 NFL titles. Before that, he won 2 Super Bowls.
And my thing on Jimmy Johnson is this: for the time span that Jimmy Johnson was a head coach, I don't think anybody other than maybe Belichick, because he had Brady with him and won so many there, nobody did what he did in the time span that Jimmy Johnson. It's just he didn't coach that many years. Jimmy Johnson, to me, might be the smartest coach of all time in the sense that he won those championships at Miami. Great timing to go to the pros. Then won the championships with Cowboys, right? Built that up. Moved on, decided to take another job in Miami. Did pretty well, but and then he just decided, you know what? I'm rich enough and I want to enjoy the rest of my life. And he's obviously making millions as an announcer.
Well, the funny thing, if he didn't step away, got along, he would have won 3. I mean,
Easily.
So then 3 is more than 2, and then Jimmy Johnson's on there. Doesn't matter if he coached 8 years, he's on there with 3. So there's a lot of different factors that come into play here. That's why Mount Rushmore is a great debate, and you could do it with like who's the Mount Rushmore, quarterbacks, running backs, all that. It's such a great debate. But I heard it last week, and I heard somebody say, if Andy Reid wins, he's 4th. But I just don't know if I could put him there. So,
my thing on Jimmy Johnson is, I obviously have a Cowboys fan as you are, like, just what he did, like bringing the Cowboys back was such an amazing thing. My thing on Jimmy Johnson is that Jimmy Johnson, to this day, I'm talking all the coaches of all time, I've never seen anybody put together such dominance in a short time period and make such great moves, not just as a coach with the player, but like the Herschel Walker trade. I mean, people thought I was a huge Herschel Walker fan. People thought he was Looney Tunes, like what he did. Wanting nothing to do with Landry, one of the greats of all time, right? Wanting nothing really to do with, obviously you're a Cowboys. I loved Landry. I was like, wow. I mean, those were like strange. He was such a forward thinker. I think what him and Andy Reid have in common, it's just that Andy Reid has done it for a long time. Andy Reid is really a forward thinker. Okay. Jimmy Johnson was he was always 2 steps ahead of everybody else. Andy Reid seems to be 2 steps ahead of everybody else and how he does things. He was the same way at the Eagles. The Eagles just totally got enchanted, as they do in the Northeast, with somehow that he was a failure. It was ridiculous. But it's very different to me than a Bill Belichick, who is what I call a technical coach. Technically really great, but without Tom Brady taking the place of Drew Bledsoe, it working out and him recognizing that probably was the right move. He was terrible with the Browns. He was a great technical coach then. He does well now because he's been around so long. He still does well, but he's a technical coach. He knows X's and O's probably almost better than anybody. He understands like how things should be, but without a Tom Brady to me has the personality to relate to any player on any team and get them to buy into everything. he was like that extra person, so he didn't have to do that dirty work. Andy Reid just does the dirty work for you. He does all that stuff for you. Jimmy Johnson did all the dirty work for you. He made sure he related to a guy who was crazy and a guy who was the most stable human being on a team, and he could relate to them and get the most out of those guys. That's where I think Jimmy Johnson and Andy Reid are very, very. There's a lot of similarities to how they handle players. Chuck Noll, old school coach. Obviously Vince Lombardi's going to be an old school coach. I mean, that's just how it was back then.
But the the draft Chuck Noll had were just unbelievable. I mean, there's draft I think every and their picks. Talent evaluation, Chuck Noll, that ability. And the one thing I will give Bill Belichick credit, in addition to the technique, he understood who to invest in at ties, but they never invest in anybody. The MO of the Patriots was point. You get to the point where a guy on the press dropping, and he wants a new contract, you're gone. And we're not getting any money in back after.
Right.
We're just going to keep a rotational thing. We're gonna go and get Randy Moss, and we're going to deal with that. But there's going to be years where we're going to have two tights, and we're going to have complementary wide receivers. He was really, really good at determining when to cut ties with somebody, and I don't think that is I don't think Belichick gets enough credit for that.
Mm.
And I don't know. I'm trying.
Well, that all strikes me into being a technical coach, meaning, it's not about relating to the players. It was more pure chess. You know what I'm saying? Not the.
I think that's what he did with the personnel too.
Yeah.
Do I go on this guy? I think a couple of their cornerbacks were, high. Darrelle Revis is an example of that. No, we're not playing this game. Go. It's like, what? And do you see our Cowboys doubling down on Dak Prescott, who stinks, giving Ezekiel Elliott this ridiculous contract. He's 7 years in now. He's done. There's no forward thinking at all from a Jerry Jones. Where that's why Jimmy left, and that's why Belichick's great, because he would never give an Ezekiel Elliott that type of contract, which would hamstring his entire salary cap and budget. He would never double down on Dak Prescott if he lost, 2 playoff games as poorly as he did. There's guys that understand, the personnel, and then there's unfortunately teams that just continue to flounder. And that's, I think Andy Reid's great at that. I think, some of the guys we're talking about, Bill Belichick's great at that. Some of these coaches just have that knack for knowing. Did you hear Montana's still bitter about the 49ers? Because they transitioned to Steve Young, and he had to go to the Chiefs. And, but it was time. And they won a Super Bowl with Steve Young. Had they hung on, look at the Packers. The Packers are just a prisoner of Aaron Rodgers. They're waiting for him out of a darkness retreat to figure out whether he wants to play or not. And they have no choice but to wait. And they did the same thing with, it's the same thing. It's Bill Belichick and those guys would never let the players control the narrative. They would never overinvest in one player. Even Brady. I mean, Brady was taking, Brady was taking restructuring his contract every year, for salary cap reasons. And I don't think that was all Brady. I think that was Belichick saying, hey, you want to win these shiny Super Bowls? You like them? Well, you got to help me, because I'm not going to go get you a shiny toy every year on offense. I got to get you 4 shiny toys. We're going to have the depth, and you're going to have a lot of options, and that's going to how you win. But I need you to help me, by clearing some room so we could do this. Personnel decisions are so important in the NFL, and a lot of guys just don't get it. I'm curious to see the future. Mahomes is going to win a couple more. I think we're pretty much clear on that. Andy Reid will coach, another 5 years or whatever. Who's going to be that next one? And I think I keep thinking about who's going to be the next team that's going to step up to win the Super Bowl, because we all expect maybe Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, and Zach Taylor's a good coach. Or maybe you look at San Francisco, with Shanahan, but they don't have a quarterback. Who's going to be that next guy who's so smart and works with his general manager or is the general manager that's going to put these pieces together and play chess? Because we just talked about getting Juju, Kadarius Toney, guys like that are
How come
complementary.
McVay didn't pan out? Isn't panning out that way? Like
I
that's
think that's luck. I mean, that year they weren't great this year, but when you lose Cooper Kupp for an extended period of time, you lose Matt Stafford for an extended period of time. You have your running back battles. I forget what his name was. That the dude who was at Florida, Cam Akers wanted to leave, and then he came back. You have Aaron Donald get hurt. I mean, that team just went so fast into the tank, and then things just started going even more and more wrong. I just think I think he'll be back.
Yeah, I think LA's tough too. In my opinion, you constantly have to have the right mix of guys there because that is a place, and I'm sure you've been to California many times too. That's a place where a lot of players can really enjoy themselves too much. It's no different than Las Vegas too. I think Las Vegas, like they're if you're in Kansas City, okay, and you're a pro player in Kansas City, or you're a pro player in Boston, even though those are great places, and I've been to both, they're fun places, but there's only so many things you can do. It's not the same as being, and I always think the Lakers back in the day deserve so much credit. Not the current Lakers, but Magic Johnson era Lakers. How because you had Kareem and Magic, there was such a great mix of guys in that NBA roster that they were able to manage it. And the buses were younger, at the time and running a team, they really had a great handle on everything and how LA works and they went to Playboy parties, but then you had a Kareem who was a stabilizing. They had a nice mix, right? In LA, I think you need that. In Las Vegas, I think you need that because I think you could win a Super Bowl. It's not because you'll get guys to go there, but the stability aspect is not going to be the same as you would do in a Kansas City. I think Miami's the same reason why there has a lot of. Shula was that stabilizing force for many years, but Miami wasn't Miami of now.
Right.
It was Miami of Pablo Escobar in the 80s. It was a different Miami. So 80s Miami now is much more like LA, right? There's a lot of things going on. We used to, when I was an NFL agent for those 6 years, we would send our players to Florida, but we were very scared of sending them to a couple places that were like based out of Miami. And they were very good trainers, those guys. But we knew we'd lose our guys to another agent just because someone's going to go and take them out, and take them out here and take them out there. And so I think you can establish winning in certain places long term better because there's less distractions. Now, and the way that Andy Reid handles it, right? If Tyreek wants the money and the glitz and the glory, or what you said, Belichick would handle it the same way. Hey, listen, we loved having you. It's time for you to go. Go to Miami. Go to wherever you want to go. Have the glitz and the glory for your next 5 years or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not gonna cripple my roster like Seattle did with Russ Wilson. Denver now with Russ Wilson. I mean, you cripple your roster. They paid Mahomes. Mahomes making billions. He's making so much money. They can't do that with two. Kelsey gets paid obviously very well, and probably to the top end of the tight ends, or will be number one in tight ends. But you can't do that. You cannot, base your roster on, Tyreek Hill will give you whatever you want, and then we can't bring in these guys to help on defense. And I think Andy Reid, Belichick, guys like that understand that roster management. And I wish to God Jerry Jones understood it. He just doesn't.
Why does Jerry Jones not understand that? He
shouldn't be a GM. That's not. He needs a real GM. He needs somebody who's smart.
His son's the GM, isn't it? His son?
I mean, you can't. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. You can't be doing. You could be, get lucky and have genius moves and get Micah Parsons in the first round and CeeDee Lamb and have these great players. But if you invest so much in Dak Prescott, which is overpaid, and so much in Ezekiel Elliott, and the tread's been off that, off him for a couple of years, And then you have to make decisions like, okay, our number 2 receiver is who? Okay, well, it was Amari Cooper, but we had to get rid of him because we didn't have the money because we're locked in with this. Now we're in a situation where Zeke's going to be gone, of course, because you got to pay Tony Pollard. It's just to find that balance of team. San Fran can't do it because they can't figure out a quarterback. I mean, George Kittle said the other day, 4 out of his 5 years, they've gone 3 deep in quarterbacks. They don't have one. They traded up in a lot of draft capital for Trey Lance. He's been hurt. He hasn't been good. Jimmy G injured all the time. Like, it's those teams. That's why winning 6 Super Bowls is so impressive for the Patriots, because look at how many Hall of Famers are there from the Patriots from those glory days. I mean, Revis just went in. I think Willie McGinnis, is he in? Or Richard Seymour. Richard Seymour's in. There's like a handful. There aren't a lot, and
Yeah.
There's not going to be like the Steelers. The Steelers, you can go. I used to go to these collectibles things, right? Where helmets and autographs and stuff like that. Here's a helmet with every Steeler Hall of Famer from the '70s. There's like 15 names on it. It's like you can't even. There's no room for another person to sign it. You had Patriots helmets, like 5. That's what's amazing, because he balanced it all and just made sure that he didn't overinvest. And I think that's why the Chiefs are in good shape here. The team, if they weren't in the AFC, the team I'm telling you is going to win a Super Bowl. And I think they would win multiple if they weren't in the AFC, because the AFC is so much better than the NFC, is Jacksonville. Jacksonville is going to win a Super Bowl. Trevor Lawrence is that guy. They have an owner who's willing to spend money. They have excellent communication between Peterson and the general manager staff. They're willing to go out. They got complementary pieces with Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Evan Ingram. They're willing to overspend. They overspent for all those guys, and they got lucky. They all panned out. They're aggressive. They're doing pretty good in the draft on the defensive side of things. That's the one I see. If they were in the NFC, I would predict 3 or 4 Super Bowls for Lawrence and the Jaguars. But the AFC is just, what the hell? You got Cincinnati, you got Kansas City, Buffalo.
Does Peterson win that Super Bowl last night with that team? Yeah, I think so.
He's a very creative. First of all, Sirianni has a great attitude. He's a Philly fit. This is a Jersey guy, but he's a Philly fit. I mean, if you're you might as well be from Philadelphia. He's got the team playing hard, but I don't think he has the smarts of a Peterson offensively, where the adjustment ability, if that thing wasn't going well, and I'm not talking the Philly special or any of the garbage trick plays that everybody's known for. I'm talking Peterson won with Nick Foles with a very, very strong, smart offensive game plan against the best team in recent or perhaps NFL history in the Patriots, because he was able to adjust and kind of outcoach Belichick, just like Coughlin did. Sirianni's not that guy. So Andy Reid had the coaching advantage, and Sirianni wasn't. He couldn't hold his own.
I agree. I could talk to you all day about this. I know you.
Yeah, we got to get to the promo and the Winter. So the Winter
Yeah.
Fest week from Saturday, February 25th. Where?
It's Irons Peak in Hillsborough, New Jersey. Big indoor facility.
Hillsborough is North Jersey, right?
Northwest, a little bit west.
What about my drive? So west of Paramus, Bosco. So I'm going to be Tappan Z in it.
You would be Tappan Z. You probably could take. What is that? Is that 80? You probably would take. Ooh, that's a good question.
Well, the way I go to
It's by Somerville. You know where Somerville is?
Yeah. So I covered a couple. Somerville is Somerville the team that plays at an off-campus stadium?
Yeah.
I've been there. Right, so I'll go Tappan Z. So it's North Jersey. Technically, it's just not in the Bosco, Bergen, Paramus. It's west of that. The Winterfest is a great opportunity for kids from New Jersey, but also Pennsylvania, Maryland, Connecticut, and we're going to be promoting it more on social media for you to get exposure, compete, get a head start on your recruitment for 2024 up to 2026, 27, whatever. So look for that on our social media. That's a week from February. That's the first camp that I'll have attended in, I don't know, since the 5-Star Challenge a couple of years ago. So,
Wow.
well, when I left Rivals, the 5-Star kind of died. They don't do it anymore. It's not in existence. When I would go to that, obviously, because that was a big deal, I would go to the All-Star games because that was a big deal. But as far as the regional camps and stuff like that, I stopped going to those maybe 2018, 2019. So, and then COVID killed the camps, obviously, for that one full year and kind of killed it for the half of the next year. So, yeah, I haven't been to a football camp in a very, very long time. So that'll be interesting for me. So I'll be there. It doesn't mean you have to go because I'm there. You'll be there running it. You know how to run camps, obviously. But it's a good opportunity if you
And we
want.
started doing the star rankings. So like I started going and this is good for people to listen. If Mike ever tells me that someone should have stars, he's getting stars because Mike has seen as much as I've seen. I've seen a lot. Mike has arguably seen more than I have. So if he says there's a player like comes to the camp and is at this camp and is like, listen, I don't care, we get his film or whatever after you're like this, I don't care what he has right now. This is a guy. That's me, a guy to get stars. And
Rankings. I'm glad you brought that up because it's kind of cool. I saw you, Kyle Mosley, defensive tackle from Georgia, who's part of our promotion program, myfootballcamp.com/D1. We have a transfer portal one too. It's myfootballcamps.com/transfer. Kyle Mosley, not going to be a 4-star anyway. Just not. I don't even think he has stars yet, but he got a couple group of 5, 3 group of 5 offers in a row, whatever. What's going to happen with him is, he'll get a 3-star if like a Georgia Tech offer, or perhaps a Wake Forest. I'm trying to think of like schools that spot recruit. He'll get a mid 3-star to 3-star for like a South Carolina. If a Georgia offered him, he's 4-star, no matter what. That's how these rankings work. So for Kyle Mosley to get a 4-star from us with no offers, really, other than like UAB and a couple others, I like that stuff because it speaks to that he's a 4-star caliber player. I mean, he's a chaser. He can play the run. He can stuff the run, but he's a chaser. And as defensive tackle, you want a guy who could chase, who can change direction, who can make the quarterback uncomfortable, not just put in the pocket. And that's exactly what he is. He's a Power 5 level kid. We're ahead of the curve on him. And now he's got a star ranking. And now he can go out and he can say, I'm Kyle Mosley. I'm a 4-star prospect. And that's going to help his recruitment even more. So I'm glad you mentioned the stars. Jaffe, you have Andy Jaffe as a star. He's committed to Wake Forest. Got a few Power 5 offers. Not the sexiest Power 5 offers in the world. We're not talking Ohio State and Alabama and all that stuff. But he's a 4-star level player. And I think you're going to see from these rankings a lot of these kids that are 3-stars in these other places because they'll just throw you 3 stars if you have Power 5. No more 2-stars there at all. This is a little bit of a difference maker. Because I think what it's going to do is you see a 4-star on your site. Coaches are going to say, okay, these 2 guys, these 2 old farts, they've been around for a long, long time. They got gray beards, been 45 years in the industry combined. Let me see what they got. Are they throwing stars in these kids just to like sell a product, or are they real? And then they're going to look at them and be like, oh, wow, this kid may not be a 4-star to me, the coach at Clemson, but this kid is of interest to me. And the reason I'm looking at it is to get that 4-star to his name.
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you one of the things that's really interesting is like I went and looked at all these other sites and I just happened this kid out plays for my club team and he's a New Jersey player of the year. And the New Jersey player to Gatorade player of the year, okay? And New Jersey player of the year in every this Michael Ford from Toms River North. 20 from quarterback, 2,500 yards rushing, insane amount of touchdowns. It was like Johnny Manziel numbers, just in New Jersey, we're a state that doesn't really happen that often, those kind of numbers. They broke the state record in scoring and all that kind of stuff. And I gave him a 5-star. Okay. Now I went and looked back after, all right, to see if he actually had stars yet. Because I did it before even going and checking. I went and looked at some other places. They hadn't even put stars on him yet. So they haven't even got around yet. Now he has Maryland, West Virginia. He has, a handful of big offers. But his own state hasn't offered him yet, though, which I don't understand why. But that's weird to me. But I won't get into that.
Don't even get me started.
Ridiculous. But anyway, what I find was so interesting is that this is a guy probably that the other services did not at the time expect to end up doing what he did. So he still doesn't have stars yet, even though he has these offers, right? And there's because they haven't gotten to, and you know this, they're going through their current 5-star guys and the current for 2024 4-star guys and reevaluating them to see if they're going to push them to All American games or top tier All American games and stars if they have to move somebody before they get to him. Now, obviously, he's going to get a minimum of 3 stars, but before they can evaluate him to put in a 4 stars, they have to go through all those other guys because they probably never planned on him being any higher than a 3-star. They probably figured, okay, this kid will get an offer or whatever. We'll make him a 3-star. There's not much work we have to do, right?
The other part of it, you don't want to overrank a kid with Maryland. What's he got? Maryland, West Virginia?
Maryland, West Virginia. He's got like 5 or 6 big ones.
Syracuse, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
Syracuse, like a lot of ACC.
So this is the way it works. This is just real talk, real life.
Yep.
This is the way it works. They don't want to overrank a kid like that. Okay? They don't want to make him a 4-star right now. Because, what if he doesn't get any more offers and he commits to Syracuse? Now, is it the worst thing in the world for Syracuse to get a 4-star quarterback? No. But if they overrank him and he commits to Syracuse, he's an outlier, which there should be. You put him at 3 stars now, then
he's not going to be a quarterback in college either.
Okay, he's going to be an athlete.
He's an athlete, right? Could be a linebacker, could be a safety, could be right.
Yeah, but he's got these nice little mid-tier offers, right? You don't want to overrank him as 4 because if he does commit to one of those schools, then he's a 4-star, and it's not against these schools, but you want to have that buffer room when he gets Michigan, or Ohio State or something like that. Then you can bump him up. Your subscriber base gets excited. Everybody gets excited. You sell more subscriptions. Yada, yada, yada. That's just the way it is. So it's just the way it is.
So interesting.
But the business strategy that says to keep him here, and then if he blows up, we have room to move him up. If you put him high, okay, he's got, West Virginia, Syracuse, Maryland. And then he commits to Michigan or Penn State or Texas or, one of these big fan sites, traditional powers, really big schools. I don't want to keep using Georgia and Alabama, but, let's say he commits to Clemson or something like that. And you keep him here. That doesn't do anything for anybody. But if you have him here and he commits to one of these, you move him on. Oh, wow. Fan base happy. That's
right.
How
and Michigan found him and Ohio State found him. He was plucked out of obscurity.
And we reevaluated him. I told you this story last week or 2 weeks ago about the kid who was committed to UCLA, the running back from California, committed to UCLA, high 3-star kid, flips to Georgia. All of a sudden he's a high 4-star kid, reevaluated. He wasn't. UCLA, my guess, fan base, very, very small. Well, not my guess. I know the fan base, very, very small, from a subscriber aspect, bottom tier, along with a lot of the West Coast schools, or the schools that don't have like huge fan bases or whatever, or basketball schools. Georgia, oof, huge fan base, huge website, huge this, that, and the other. And it's not strictly business. It's your perception. Back when Pete Carroll was recruiting at USC, when a kid got a USC offer, and he recruited all over the country, he pulled Keith Rivers from Florida, tried to pull her Percy Harvin from Virginia, Dwayne Jarrett from New Jersey, good example. When USC offered a kid, it made you go, what? I got to look at this kid again. And that's what these big school commitments make you do. There's an offensive tackle in Michigan. I won't name his name. Right now, he's leaning towards Illinois. He's got Illinois, he's got Iowa, he's got Wisconsin, he's got ties to Illinois, whatever. Now, Michigan, Ohio State, and Notre Dame are looking at him. He's a 3-star prospect. If any one of those 3 schools offer him, he'll probably end up going to one of those 3 schools. He will be a 4-star the second they offer him. That's just the way it works. And I'm not saying it's bad, good, or whatever, but I'm saying the star.
I think that has an influence on, indirectly, that actually helps recruiting for those bigger schools, if I'm not mistaken. Meaning, the kids start to desire those schools without knowing that that's why they're getting more stars. So they start to desire because they see that those schools, kids commit to that school, they're a 4 or 5-star, right? So indirectly, they start to see that. And when you're a kid coming up and you're a really good player, you start to think, well, wait a minute, I got to go play for these schools. Now, you're not thinking it's because of stars, but really that's the backdrop of it. The backdrop of it is the fan base allows you to rate them higher because the business aspect of it, and in turn, may help you get a couple more. And how many do you need? 1 or 2 extra players to make a difference? That's all you need in a lot of these situations.
Here's an example. Brock Glenn is a quarterback who committed to Ohio State in the 2023 class, right? Florida State flipped him. He stayed around the same in his ranking. He was a 4-star kid. Florida State is not as prominent and recently successful as Ohio State, but it's still a big brand, okay? So he flipped there. Ohio State ends going on a kid from North Dakota. Middle of nowhere kid. He was a 3-star kid. I think he was going to head out West Coast. Not a huge, not a big offer kid. Well, at the end of the rankings, he commits to Ohio State, and he's in the top 5, 7 in a really deep recruiting class. Really deep. I mean, that quarterback class 2023 is special. I have Arch Manning number 8 in that class. It's really deep. But again, instantly, because I rated him 25th. I kept his rating where I had it before.
Right.
But you suck, you're an idiot, you're so stupid, how you're so dumb. Well, no, he was 25th before he committed to Ohio State. He's 25th now. He hasn't changed as a football player. I had Brock Glenn as a top 15 quarterback, and he flipped to Florida State. Some people dropped him a little bit because going from Ryan Day, Heisman finalists every year at quarterback, to Florida State, who's just starting to get their stuff together. I'm not saying it's strategically imprinted. I'm saying this is the thought process. And I will tell you, any business, I don't care which website you talk about, and this is any business in the world, if one aspect of that business brings in, say, 10% of your overall bottom line, and another part of that business brings in 1% of your bottom line, you're going to acquiesce to the 10%, and you're going to put your assets and all your time and energy into that. So if you've got a site that brings in 10% of your revenue versus a site that brings in 1%, well, they have a stronger fist.
Makes sense.
They can smash it on the table and it makes more noise, as opposed to the 1%er who's like smashing his fist, no one hears it. And it's not even that they have to smash their fist. It's the fact that their fist is bigger than the others.
Yeah.
To do it. They don't even have to hit. They just wield it. So instantly in your head, you're like, oh, geez, this kid just went from UCLA to Georgia. I better do something before that fist comes down. And so you preemptively do it. And it's all subconsciously. I don't think there's this super, honestly, if I were running the company I used to work for, it would have been conscious business
Strategy.
It was never that way. So in defense of where I used to work,
sure.
defense of 24/7, in defense on through all these other places, it was never that strategy. From a business aspect, it makes sense.
Right.
From a
Absolutely.
business perspective, it makes sense to have 100 5-stars.
Absolutely.
Your competition has 30.
Yeah.
They're going to gravitate towards you because you got their kids ranked higher. They never did that. So in their defense, it was never. But I will tell you that's how it works. That's how it works. So this kid from New Jersey, gonna be a 3-star to start. He gets those big offers. He'll move up to 4. I'm not saying it's business. I'm not saying it's intentional. I'm not saying it's a bad evaluation skills. I'm just saying that's the way the world works now. So for us to have a kid like Mosley who's got group of 5 offers as a 4-star already, we don't have to move him up or down. We don't care. There's no fists.
There's no fist.
You don't care. We're the fist.
Yeah.
Whatever. We can do what we want. And there's nobody else to listen to us or care. And that's the best part about it. So these rankings are interested in me. Now, in the industry, honestly, they're going to be laughed at. All the other big sites here and all the experts can be like, oh, look, Schuman put a 4-star on a kid with a UAB offer. Ha, ha, ha. That's for business purposes. When really it's kind of not. But I don't care because eventually it's going to play out properly.
Correct.
We could say, hey, you guys had Andy Jaffe as a low 3-star the whole time. He goes off to Wake Forest. He becomes an all-ACC player in a couple of years. We had him as a 4. It's one you can brag about. Now, we're going to look stupid, too, on some because that's the.
But everybody does on both anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
Right.
Like, you think about it, how many 5-stars? Obviously, there are the load of 5-stars. Half of them go on to be megastar pros. Half of them phase out. It really doesn't, And then you got a 4-star. Half of them do well. Half of them phase out.
Last night's game, Jalen Hurts, quarterback, 4-star. Patrick Mahomes, quarterback, 3-star. Travis Kelce, 2-star. Kadarius Toney, 3-star. Trying to think of somebody else who, AJ Brown, 4-star. There were legitimately, I think, about 6 or 7 5-stars in that entire game. 53-man rosters, 106 players, 6 or 7 5-stars. But again, there's less 5-stars.
There's less 5-stars.
So that's a much smaller percentage of the pool, many more 3-stars. So that's the majority of your Super Bowl rosters. It's the majority of the players ranked. But you can never tell.
I'll tell you the funniest thing of all. This will make you laugh. This will really make you laugh. Hypothetically, you just said, I'll do 500 5-stars. Okay? Everyone would laugh. Everyone would be like, this is ridiculous. Schuman and listen to Farrell's great advice at adding more 5-star. And he decided to go at 500 5-stars.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were 500 4-stars and 500 3-stars. Okay? Just made it even across the board. In 10 years, the guy who would have more 5-stars in the NFL would be me. It's numbers. It's pure numbers.
It is.
And they would turn around and go, he's a genius. It's not that I'm a genius.
No, it would be they would think you're a genius because if you look at this, let's say you did this 10 years ago. Okay. So let's say guys like Miles Sanders who were on the cusp, guys like Devontae Smith who were on the cusp, AJ Brown who were on the cusp of being 5-stars. Well, in 500 5-stars, they're easily going to be 5-stars. This Super Bowl roster out of 106 players has 7 or 8 consensus, industry 5-stars. You would have 35. And nobody would care. Nobody would care. They'd be like, this guy's a secret genius. Who is he? Because it is all numbers. Now, again, we should do it. We should do it today.
We are. We're going to do it. Listen, I'm telling you right now, I took your advice and I'm going to go through it. Obviously, I'm not going to put someone that isn't, that we don't deem to be great. But I'm going to go through that process. And obviously, anything you tell me, I obviously trust your judgment on everything. So, but I'm going to go through that process, and we're going to pick more guys. We're going to pick more guys than anyone else has. And obviously, you're 100% right. There's no one going to yell at me for doing that. Who's going to yell at me? Nobody, because there's no fan base that pays me.
Right.
And I agree with you 100% that it was indirect. It's not direct, but there's no fan base that can influence me. And the truth is, all the guys that they want to get 5-star, it'll just be more 5-stars for them. Well, if you think about it, there's going to be more Alabama guys that are going to get 5-stars.
Well, and no one's going to, let's say you did it with the 2024 class 10 years from now, no one's going to break down the 2024 class on these other websites versus yours and say, well, they had 32 5-stars. Schuman had 500. Nobody's going to take the time to even care about that. And again, 500 is a little bit much. I
Yeah,
mean,
I'm saying it
I'm
facetiously.
saying, yeah, but I'm saying like 100 versus 32. You
Right.
know, you'd have double-digit 5 stars in the Super Bowl. You know, the reason the 5 star number became, we started the first year we ever did 5 stars. This was before even the internet, before this is even online. And in our first year, 2002, it trickled into that. We had 55 5 stars, 56, 60. The 1999, 2000, 2001, and 2002, we had over 55 stars. And then the decision was made in the 2003 class to cut that back. I don't know why. I wasn't part of that. I
Right.
was there, but I wasn't asked. They scaled it back. So then it became between the low of 28 to the high of 35. It should have stayed 55. And then, of course, what you have is like at the time it was Insiders, which turned into Scout.com. They copy and do the same 28 to 35. And then 24/7 comes into play after, he leaves Rivals. He goes to 24. They go the same. They go 32 because that's how many first round draft picks there are. And then On3 comes around and they're in that same range. Honestly, if you're a smart businessman, they should have never scaled it back. We should have always been 50 to 60. If you're a smart businessman, it should have gone from 50 to 60 in the mid 2000s when the peak of recruiting online was occurring and most of the subscriptions were being paid for. Should have gone to 100. And now, if you're starting a new company, if you want to start like, stars.com and compete with these others, you go 100 minimum. And that Tennessee fan who's got 3 5 stars on these other sites, but all of a sudden he's got 6 on your site, well, maybe I'll sign up for this. I got money. $10 a month? What does that hurt me? I like you better because you got 6 of my guys at 5 stars. I don't give a crap whether you know how to evaluate or chew gum and walk at the same time. I'm choosing 6 over 3. And that's what they'll do. It's simple business.
It is.
And it's just, if you do it, you're going to look smarter. You're never going to look dumber, ever. Because there's nobody smart enough in this industry to really dig into it and say, that's why the 2 stars went away.
Well, what's really funny and very true on this. There's a whole debate about Mel Kiper, obviously, which is the most renowned NFL guy, and you do the draft stuff too. But it's the guy that everybody.
He's the godfather of the draft.
Right. So when Mel Kiper, they're complaining. I just saw this thing where they're complaining about this. Will Levis is one of the big things people complain about, right? This guy over there. What was really interesting was they went back. This one guy went back and said the reason why a lot of these guys, whether they did well or they didn't do well, started to get cachet around the NFL is early on when Mel Kiper comes out with his early stuff, he had these guys really high. So if Mel Kiper had you really high to start with, very unlikely are you going to drop below a certain point unless something crazy happens, like a criminal offense or something. Right. Outside of something crazy, you're not going to go below a certain point because once Mel Kiper's put you up there, everybody just kind of says, well, this guy's been doing it longer than everybody else. And how bad could this player be? Right. So the GMs and the player personnel guys who have jobs tied to their company are not going to go out on a limb on something. Every once like Bill Belichick goes out on the limb, but there's a few people that do that. Most of them don't. So if it comes within this rating area, they're not going to go too far out of it. So that's how you see guys sometimes go higher, and then you scratch your head after. Well, Mel Kiper, who was the godfather of that, they basically he thinks that this guy's pretty good. He's watched all the film way before everybody started watching film on these players, and thinks this person's pretty good. Now, obviously, he's probably wrong as much as he's right, but it doesn't matter. Everyone's already influenced by that now.
Yeah. And and the 5 stars, we talked about this on a previous one, and we got to wrap it up. But
yeah,
same thing. Dorial Green Beckham was the number 1 player in the country, I think, in the 2012 class. He didn't have a great career. He got in trouble smoking weed, whatever. He went the first pick of the second round. He didn't really deserve that based on his measurables were great and all that, but his college career was not worthy of that. Rashawn Gary, great example. Freak athlete. Had an average career. Never was the sack machine expected at Michigan. Still first round. That's what happens with the stars because, people will be like, well, he was a 5-star in the high school for some reason, so let's take a chance on him. Same thing with the draft. It's just, it is what it is. So, I think the 5-star strategy in this business has always been like poor. It's been not thought out properly because people want to be very, very, I don't know. They want to be objective and they want to really be like be able to sleep at night with their evaluations, but it's all shooting darts at a dartboard anyways. I mean, yeah, you hit Trevor Lawrence, but Hunter Johnson. Anybody know who Hunter Johnson is? Okay, 5-star kid. Went to Clemson, transferred to Northwestern, back at Clemson. Sucks. Hasn't played it down. It's horrible.
Was the throw god a 4-star?
Throw God was probably a 4-star back in the day. I mean, just crapshoot. So you might as well put out a bigger net. If you could choose 64 guys as first rounders, why not?
Yeah.
Only 32 picks, but why not say 64 deserve it? Because you're going to be right more than you're wrong. Again, 105 stars, let's do it.
And the only reason I know, by the way, that throw guy was probably a 4-star because he says it all the time.
He's a very funny but annoying human being. Like too much. Like he followed me on TikTok. He reached out to me in DM about.
He knows you well.
Oh, I know. Well, he's reached out about collaborating on stuff like that. And listen, I'm not.
He's just so over the top.
It's exhausting. His energy level just wears me out, man. It's just too much. He's so funny, but I don't have it in me to like have conference calls with Throw God. I barely, this podcast on a Monday, we do it once a week. I'm like, okay, I'll do it again this week. Because that's who I am. It's like, I'm not going to spend time. So Throw God would be like a full on investment in my life. And I'm too old for that garbage, but he's funny. If you don't, Throw God on Instagram and TikTok, just search in Throw God, and he's got some funny stuff. But let's get out of here. So myfootballcamps.com-D1 for promotion, high school promotion, star rankings as well. myfootballcamps.com/transfer. I got another individual who's going to sign up for the transfer portal thing because again, the next window is April 15th, so we got time now. Everybody's taking a breath. Coaches are reevaluating all the portal kids now. So that's a good promotion for you. The Winterfest is February 25th in Northwest New Jersey. I'll be there for the first time at a camp since probably 2019. And that's it.
That's myfootballcamps.com/winter, I believe.
Winter. Okay. And you'll see it. I'm going to put out some on my social media. I'm Farrell Sports. You're going to put out some at NEC Sports or at
Yep.
So we'll promote that this week, and that'll fill up and sell out quick. So yeah, I wouldn't wait on that one. And then, if that one's successful, we'll do a couple more down the line and, whatever.
That sounds good to me. All right, let's get out of here. Let you get out. The one thing about the Super Bowl makes it a fun podcast. There's a lot to talk about.
Hour and 32 minutes and counting.
That might be our record.
That's our record. That's the longest we ever. Trust me, I know our record. I know exactly how late you are. 12:02 versus 12. You notice at 12, I text you. I know when you lose your voice. I know when you're pushing back. So when we first started this, it was like I was always the one pushing off and late. And I'm like, well, maybe we won't do it today, or maybe we'll change the time. And you were so like locked in calendar-wise and time-wise. It's like Monday at 12, no matter what.
Right.
Second I locked in, then it started being like 12:30. I lost my voice at 12:02. And I'm like, no. I'm going to be up his ass. I'm going to be like annoying.
I love it. It's great.
Well, if I'm going to block this time out,
oh, yeah,
we're doing it. So 133 is our longest ever. So, congratulations.
And by the way, most consistent number of people watching it too.
What?
Yes.
Yeah, we can't be gaining traction. I mean, who listens to us?
Well, you know what? And I don't do it enough. The one thing, like the overall podcast, no one's going to listen to our clips. The clips gain traction. I got to put more clips out.
I'm telling you, I'm really bad at stuff like that. I do a podcast on a weekly basis during the football season. I have my guy produce it. I put it up on YouTube. I promote it a couple times. I'm too lazy to put together clips. I see these people who do this, though, with podcasts, and they put clip, and it really gains traction. It's to me, it's just a laziness on my part that I don't do it.
The few I've done, it's literally every one of those are 5,000, 10,000.
It works. It really does work. It's just like, it's boring. Like, let's go to this point where we're talking about this. Let me flip up a minute. It's just like, it's not exciting, but it works.
It does. All right, let's get out of here. I'll see you next week. Enjoy your day, man.
See ya.
Bye.